So it's a little bit ridiculous to say, oh, because you're not born in this specific landmass, and you can even go closer to home, you can say Mexico or Canada, because you're born in Tijuana instead of, Los Angeles, which is kind of the same thing, and nowadays, functionally speaking. But if we get into that later, if you're now you deserve unalienable rights unless you were born in a different place. Oh no! So what is an unalienable right if it doesn't apply to you if you're born in some other country?
If there's people who have been alienated from it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my whole point. It's like, okay, so we're now going to impose our morality. We're going to impose our hegemony on other countries because we're the best country in the world. We need to police everybody. We need to spread democracy to the Middle East. Like, but you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to enforce the labor laws that we've enforced on ourselves to others. I want to give you an example of what I think a fake problem is that people might not think of. One is like the supply chain issue. Something that people think, oh, that's a big problem. That's a normal problem. That's a real problem. That's a real issue, right? Supply chain issue is a big deal. But for me, if you kind of you already know where I'm going to go with this. I can tell by the way you're smiling, but just hear me out and entertain this. Here's the thing: if you have a situation where you're now allowing yourself to be beholden to something as a supply chain issue, think about what you've done to yourself to allow that. Okay, now our country obviously imports goods and services from other countries, right? So let's say they import a certain amount of plastic or a certain amount of steel from China, and that's how they bring it here, and they maybe use that steel to kind of assemble or build some kind of product. If you have some supply chain issue, like let's say China ceases to exist or something, like let's just use an extreme example. Let's say they just cease to exist. Let's just boom. And my supply chain is now having problems. So now I can't build any steel or plastic goods. We don't have that option available to us, guys. Sorry about that. Our supply chain issue is gone, or it's there. We're not going to be able to have. No. So my point obviously is this. If you open the door to allowing yourself to be beholden to something like that, you're going to, of course, have a fake problem arise in the form of a supply chain issue. Whereas instead of doing that, if you had just said, hey, let's go dial it back and ask the question, why did we start offsetting all of the production of plastic and steel to China? Okay, we did that because it's cheaper to get it done there, right? It's not that we can't do it here. It's just that the labor in China is cheaper than the labor here. Okay, let's go back from there because now I'm doing the Dean strategy of go up, down, top, bottom. So let's go back from there. Why is the labor cheaper in China than the labor here? Oh, that's because for whatever reason, and we talked about this a little bit last week, for whatever reason, we think that if you work here, you deserve $15 an hour, you deserve healthcare, you deserve all this stuff. But if you work in China, which is arbitrarily located in a different location on the earth, you're not beholden to that same morality, that same ethics. You don't deserve that. You live in China. You were born in a different country. You don't deserve $15 an hour. Kidding me? Totally fine. So that's kind of if you go that far back, you'll see immediately to me that's a contradiction. So it's a little bit ridiculous to say, oh, because you're not born in this specific landmass, and you can even go closer to home, and you can say Mexico or Canada, because you're born in Tijuana instead of, Los Angeles, which is kind of the same thing, and nowadays, functionally speaking. But if we get into that later, if you deserve unalienable rights unless you were born in a different place. Oh no! So what is an unalienable right if it doesn't apply to you if you're born in some other country?
If there's people who have been alienated from it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's my whole point. It's like, okay, so we're now going to impose our morality. We're going to impose our hegemony on other countries because we're the best country in the world. We need to police everybody. We need to spread democracy to the Middle East. Like, but you know what we're not going to do? We're not going to enforce the labor laws that we've enforced on ourselves to others. And in fact, we're gonna make it worse by incentivizing those countries to send us all these goods and services by operating a trade deficit with those countries and say, come on in, give me all your goods and services, and here, take all of our USD and pay all your workers 40 cents an hour and put up these nets on your buildings so that your workers don't unalive themselves. I just listed 9 or 10 different call stack issues of fake problems just because one little, but I feel bad if I don't pay my guys $15 an hour. We don't have healthcare and stuff, so gotta offset it. Gotta buy the skateboard from China. Can't build it here. So talk to me about what that real world example is and what that means to you and how you would go about solving that. And then if you can contextualize that in an example that somebody else might have in their actual life, not like a small scale version of it.
Yeah. So that's a great illustration of the maybe the primary driver of most of our fake problems is this misplaced sense of we can fix things that are not really fixable. Okay. So in my view, that's sort of the liberal ideology in a nutshell, is that if we just pass the right laws, the right set of laws, our society will be perfect. That is the liberal project. I mean, if you go through history, you have two sides, and they call themselves something else every time. But you have conservatives who say, in my view, are more accurate. They say, we kind of got this far doing it this way. Let's just keep doing it. We don't really need to make huge changes. Like, yeah, okay, there's some certain things that are unfair, but we can't always just fix every problem. So we kind of just got to deal with it as it comes up. And then you have liberals who are like, no, this is all wrong. It's all unjust. There's injustice, and we have to fix the injustice by passing laws. We need more laws. We need just the right amount of laws. And this, okay, that law's wrong. We'll fix it and put it this one in. And then we got this one, and then we got 10 more laws to enforce that law. And it's just a million laws. Just keep adding more and more and more and regulations and laws because you want to fix every little problem. Oh, this company did this bad thing. Well, instead of just executing the CEO, what we'll do is we'll pass a law. We'll just pass a law, and then nobody will ever do anything wrong ever again after that. We'll just fix it.
I think Luigi mentioned
CEO,
thinks otherwise.
yeah, we'll go to the CEO and we'll say, "Hey, thanks for finding this problem for us. Here's $10 million." That's I don't know. That's a
Right.
stupid example, but just that's the liberal mindset, right? Is let's just fix everything, right? You cannot fix everything. You just mentioned great example. People in the United States expect a certain wage for their labor. Right? Mm-hmm. That's just how we are. Mm-hmm. And actually, if we were left to our own devices, even the employers are okay with that. Even the employers are like, yeah, I don't want to rip you off. Hey, I know you. I see you every day. I'm not trying to get one over on you. Yeah, like I want to pay you a fair amount for the work you do. I appreciate it. You're helping me. I'm helping you. We're building something together. That's how we are in the United States. That's how we are. As you pointed out, when we move it across the pond, we move to China. I don't see freaking whatever Chinese dude every single day. I don't see him. I don't care about him. I don't know his family. I don't know anything about him. I don't live near him. His life does not affect mine whatsoever. So if I'm paying him 40 cents an hour to work a extremely stressful factory job and I never have to see him, it's just more money in my pocket, right? This is also human nature. It's nothing to do with any race of people. It's just human nature. Right. If you're out of my mind, I don't care about you. How could I? I don't even know you. How could I even give a crap about you whatsoever? So I'm happy to just pay you less and pocket the money. Now, as a conservative, I see this as a problem. Liberals would also see this as a problem if they're being honest. Would see this as a problem. Now, as a conservative, what do I do about that? Because I don't want that happening. It's not necessarily because I care so much about the Chinese person, although I do. I mean, I don't want anybody to be working to death. I mean, that's awful. I don't want that. But it's not necessarily because I care about them. It's because I see that this is okay. That's a job that could have been going to my neighbor or me. Could have been going to somebody I care about, and somebody in my immediate community could have been making a decent wage doing that job. But now that job is gone. So as a conservative, that's a problem for me. I need to know what are we going to do about that. So my solution to this is our economy, and I'm speaking specifically about the United States, but I think this is true for every country. We need to be self-sufficient as much as we possibly can. Now, in the United States, I happen to believe one of the reasons I think the United States is the greatest country to ever exist is because we have the best position on the map, right? If you're playing Civilization and we spawned in on this particular area of the map, I'd be like, great, nice, easy game, right? We have everything we need right here. We have two giant oceans, impossible to invade this country without us knowing about it, like hours in advance, right? We have friendly neighbors, for the most part. We have every natural resource you can want. We have a fantastic labor force filled with good people for the most part. We have everything you need here to be fully self-sufficient. There is no reason we should have a trade deficit with China for raw materials like steel and plastic. That's crazy.
Right.
There's no reason for that to be the case. We can do that here.
Right.
So we should be doing it here, and we need to do what we need to do to make that happen. Now, it's going to be tough in the interim because we're relying on China for these materials, so we got to sort of ramp up our own production. But the only way we're going to get our companies to ramp up that production is by cutting off the faucet, right? And that's going to be like ripping off the Band-Aid right there. There's going to be some turmoil, but in my view, it needs to be done.
And I love that you ended that statement with ripping off the Band-Aid, because that's kind of the end of what I'm about to say involves that exact analogy, because I'm going to talk to you kind of using what you were saying, and like the liberal solution and the conservative solution, like they both agree that this is a problem, right? We both agree,
Yeah.
but there's different ways of dealing with it, and I think a lot of people, and I even went through this myself, so this is why I specifically can kind of talk about this. Is almost like a 5 stage of grief situation with relation to this exact problem. It's like you almost have like a 5 stage of how do I fix this problem going on in your head, and
Yeah.
I'm going to use like sort of like autistic programming kind of example, like titles to example these, but you can put these in with whatever you think, right? So I would say like the Windows 11 solution is like, that, and that is like the entry level. Like I'm just using Windows 11 because it's on whatever machine I'm using, so I'm not worried about this, right?
Yeah.
That is keep doing what we're doing, right? That's just the status quo. Keep it going. No big deal. I'm getting my paycheck. You're getting yours. Gary's getting Gary's. Hu Xiao's getting Hu Xiao's. Maybe it's $4 an hour, but it's whatever. You know what I mean? Chun Long is getting 450, whatever. So we're fine. Windows 11. The Mac solution, maybe you're a little okay. I'm up to the Mac level, so I know a little bit more. That's Unix compliant, it's POSIX compliant, but still, that's what I would say. Like the liberal solution. This is where I'm going with this. Is kind of what you said. It's like, okay, we should fix this, but we need to keep paying those guys because they depend on it, right? And so when I hear somebody say this, I think they're almost based. They're getting there, but they need a little bit of work. And why I bring that up is because I've had people tell me, oh, it's terrible that you have like that we're buying iPhones, and that supports this culture of child labor. Like you're supporting child labor when you buy an iPhone. And then I've had somebody like the Unix Mac guy tell me, well, hey, those guys are actually they're getting paid that money, and they have that job because it's the best thing they can get. So they're basically trying to frame it to where you're actually doing them a favor by buying that iPhone because you're giving them a potential job they wouldn't have. They would otherwise be on some farm and having some less quality of life, right? So that's their kind of cope, right? That's level 2. And I like to say I had that for a couple of years and then evolved into the Linux System D solution. Kind of, you get past that and you kind of install your own operating system and go from there. And this was like kind of level 3, which was, okay, we actually don't need to fix that problem because but we should still pay for it because the free market will run things, right? And that was, again, that's not fully evolved. That's level 3, but that's entry level Linux tier. You go to work and say, well, you're using a Windows machine. I use Linux. Okay. So I'm not going to flex on you, but I use Linux. It's actually its own free open software solution. And what that means is I think the free market will dictate everything. Right. So that's, again, you're cooking, but you're not cooked. So I think when you get to that base Gen 2 OpenRC style, you're not going to understand this lingo at all because that's how good of a solution it is. This is this is.
I'm lost, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah, you lost me after Windows 11, dude. What is a Mac?
It's like one of those memes where the brain keeps expanding, but you don't understand the lingo at the bottom. We're down at the bottom here, guys, and that's that. Like, it's not even a brain; it's a cat or something from the universe, 100 trillion years away from now, that are immune to the 2036 Y236 bug that we'll get into next week. But anyway, that solution is we do need to fix the problem, but we're going to do it by not paying them anymore. Okay, we're going to withdraw consent to the Chinese market. We're going to withdraw consent to the iPhone market, and what that's going to do, to the Unix Mac guy who was saying, hey, but they depend on that money. Well, hey, guess what? It's the nanny state issue, and it all circles back to you're just contributing more to it, and it's going to make it worse in the long run. Whereas and this is why I liked what you said at the end, because I kind of was thinking this is how I'll end my next kind of paragraph, if you will, is that you said rip the Band-Aid off early. I think the Gen 2 OpenRC solution is, stop paying them. We don't need that crap. And that will rip the Band-Aid off early too, because they're not going to be depending on something anymore because they're not going to have it. So they're going to have to find ways to adapt, which they were doing before we offset the labor to them to begin with. They were perfectly fine on that farm.
Exactly.
They were happy. They were Farmer Joe equivalent. Like we don't need to have these fake problems. Like rip the Band-Aid off and let them go back to what they were doing.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a perfect way to phrase it. Like if you think about it like this, a conservative position, and I hate, almost sometimes I even hate using conservative liberal. I almost hate doing that, but it's shorthand for what we're talking about. Like I don't want you guys to think that I'm beholden to some political party or some political ideology, because I'm not. Like conservatism in the United States comes with so much baggage that I don't personally identify with. I don't like it, all right? But it's shorthand for what I'm trying to get across. So hopefully you understand that. But when I say like the conservative solution, Maybe that's not even accurate. There's probably a lot of conservatives that would call themselves conservatives in the United States that don't agree with what I'm about to say. But in my view, it is conservative because I'm trying to conserve something, right? I'm trying to conserve the incentive and the ability of people to take care of themselves. That's what I'm trying to conserve. So, as Tony said, if we're not sending money to China for fake iPhones, right? We don't. They're going to have to figure out some other way to take care of themselves. That's actually helpful to them. So it's the difference between your mother and your father, right? There's a reason why the Democrats, women love voting for Democrats and men love voting for Republicans. There's a reason for this, okay? Because generally, although they are a uniparty and there's really not that big of a difference between them, but in general, the conservative ideology is more masculine and the liberal ideology is more feminine. The instinct, the spirit of those two movements are masculine and feminine. The conservative movement is like your dad when you're afraid to ride your bike down the hill. Okay? He says, "You know how to ride your bike? You're going to be fine. Even if you fall, you're going to be fine. Yeah, you might get a scrape or two. All right, it's not going to be fun if you fall, but I know you can do it. So just freaking do it. In fact, he might even push you to just force you to do it, you know? Whereas your mom is going to see that you're scared and she's not going to want you to hurt yourself. She's, oh, please be careful. I don't know if you're ready for that yet. Maybe we could just wait a little longer. Wait, put the training wheels back on. Do you have your helmet strapped in? That's your mom, okay? And she's being your mom, and that's great. But you need your dad sometimes. You need your dad to just push you down the damn hill so that you can see what you're capable of.
What's up, guys? Thanks for checking out this clip from the Maneuver Life podcast. If you enjoyed it, consider liking and subscribing and leaving a comment, even if it's just because you want to tell us how dumb you think we are, but especially if you want to tell us how much you agree with what we were saying. We have weekly uploads every single Monday, long-form conversations just like this one. So consider checking it out one way or the other. Thank you so much for your attention. You have a good rest of your day.